like my total dedicated work as a SRE is with the Ford client, which has been like 2 years of engagement till now, like till today. So it was primarily focused on SRE models, but whereas like we are as a infrastructure engineers and DevOps engineers, we are responsible for the operation side too, but mostly we are into this SRE stuff. So in the Ford, like particularly how like our team and I dedicated SRE, I can say like I have a dedicated SRE because like we are a platform team. Okay. So, like we do provide, our platform provides the multiple services. So the services, like which includes the monitoring, infrastructure maintenance, like uh, like infrastructure maintenance, troubleshooting the issues and creating the monitoring and observability to the multiple application teams. So what we do, like we do provide the consulting services to multiple application teams. So like we do market our platform to the multiple application teams, and we onboard them to onto our platform. Okay, by onboarding to our platform, like what will be happen, like we will be providing our services like what they adopt. So mostly we will be as a SRE team, we are much more focusing on the monitoring side and observability side. Okay, this is the main primary focus we are into. And like the tool stack, the tech stack, I can't hear you, I guess you are in mute.
Okay, yeah. So how long you're working in this role, SRE role?
So with the Ford or like with the previous projects also included?
In total with different.
So
with different
around with the different employees, it would be somewhere around like 3.5 years total.
Okay.
But very dedicated SRE principles and models, like which we started adopting. I did on Ford, like which I can tell you that because like when I work with the Equifax or mostly with the health point solutions, it would be much of the role, mostly focusing on the operation side only. Like it was not that such into the SRE practices, but we used to do few of the SRE practices like we at the health point solutions we used to just do some POC with the SRE concepts, and with the Equifax like it's a very short term contract that which have been done there. So it has the point like we did on SRE POCs, like how what is the difference, basic differences that we observe in the teams, like about the availability and the reliabilities, how we are cross checking those, and regarding all that kind of stuff we have been done. But very pure dedicated, it's totally with this 2.5 years journey with the Ford is my total complete dedicated experience that I can say I have SRE here.
Okay, so when you talk about SRE, so what do you think? What are the main differences from a simple DevOps platform or from a simple DevOps job role?
Okay, so like very there are like no, it's not a we doesn't have a major differentiation between the DevOps role or the SRE. Like here's the thing, the DevOps role is to like until to maintain the operation, and even they do look for the reliability and availability checks they do perform. But where as a site reliability engineer purely, so we should be having a total understanding of how reliable the code is. We need to just have a check to the code. Like we need to even like we need to create a standardized count of our error rates of the code and everything. So as a SRE, we need to know the complete. We need to have knowledge of the complete architecture of our application that we have. And mostly, yeah, as I said, you like if DevOps people, even they are into the configuration of monitoring and all these. But where we as SRE for a application, like we do keep by using those configurations of setup of monitoring, like we do analyze the metrics, we do analyze the success, we do see the error budgets, like how error rates, or like we do like specifically focus on like metric calculation, and these
So
are
I
the.
think all these things are, as you said, these are also common in DevOps, isn't it? So I'm asking about differences. What are the major differences when you work as an SRE as compared with a simple DevOps role?
So like the main use of the SRE is like we used to have a performance up and the running at any given point of time so soon. The up point of an application like it should be our highest priority, and we need to make sure that our application is up and running all the time, and we need to work towards a solution or optimization of our application or the production environment, so that where we can avoid the any possible incidents to an environment now that can involve monitoring, that involves a monitoring, that involves like blog analysis, working production, in all these stuff. And mostly when we optimize to be very like a precise example, like I can tell you, let's think when we are in a DevOps engineering DevOps role, so we will be much more focusing on the incidents that which occur at that time or that point. But as a site reliability engineer, like we do run the checks, and we do go through our environment checks like every couple of months, and we even go into and anticipate the few of the incidents or the errors that may happen, and we will be working on those parts also for the resolving the issues. And apart from these, we are much more like where DevOps engineers mostly, they are not responsible for the creating this SLIs, SLOs or SLAs, but where as SRE we are responsible for creating an SLI or creating an SLO or SLA. Like SLA is a thing like which we like deal with if we are working with an application team. So that's the we will define so we will just suggest them the business people of that application team to just put this standardized SLA, or we will be suggesting them. So mostly our focus is not only into the development side. Mostly like we are the one step back of a business team also, to maintain or make this application successful and standardized.
Application successful. Okay, so you talk about too many terms here: SLI, SLOs. What does it mean?
When it comes to XLI, it's a service level indicator. With the service level indicator only, we are able to make the SLO, our objectives of the application. And after that, with those objectives only, like which we describe, which we give to our business product owner teams, so that they will be defining the SLA agreement. For example, when it comes to the SLI, where it measures and the SLI includes our response time of the application, availability, error rates, throughputs of all these. But when it comes to SLO, it help us to align the services provided and the customer around around a understanding of like what our application is providing to the customer. And all these. But when it comes to the SLA, it's typically a legal binding or a framework for the managing the relationship between the service providers and the customers. So, for example, when we calculate the SLA, we will be getting this availability or error rate or all about an application, right? So, in that point of time, like we will be creating our objectives. So, for example. For example, let's think for example, the SLA, the response time of the application of the e-commerce website. So let's do in this way. So once the SLA has been calculated.
Okay, can I interrupt you for a moment? So you mentioned SLI, service level indicator.
Yeah.
So under service level indicator, you mentioned response time, availability, error rate.
Yeah.
Not CPU utilization, memory utilization, disk storage. Why not you are considering those as SLIs?
So for those only, like the CPU utilization and all those only, right? So we will be like the memory storage, the calculation and everything. We will be considering for those. Like for example, our CPU memory, like certain amount of, for example, the reason because the response time is of the CPU response times, and availability is the availability of the CPU. And you said like why you are not including memory. So the memory availability also we can be check there and everything, right? So
Can it be taken as an SLI or not?
what?
Can we pick CPU memory disk as SLIs or not?
Yeah, we can pick those also as SLS. That's what I'm telling. The availability of the CPU, the utilization. When you talk about memory, the memory utilization, how much is left, how much is utilized.
Talk about error budget. What is error budget?
So okay, so when it comes to the error budget, so error budget is majorly is it like a tool like which the SRE uses to balance the service availability with the pace of innovation. So it changes our major source of instability, representing like roughly 70% of outage. So error budget policy is generally created like using which SRE creates a balance for the service reliability of the application. So like where we define our error budget is typically expressed in the percentages of like for example the total available time and the
Are you using error budget in your current role?
what?
In your current role, are
Yeah.
you making use of error budgets?
Yes.
Okay, how? What? Can you give me an example when you use an error budget?
So error budget, like we do use the standardized or like for example in incident management like we do see the number of happening number of bad incidents by total number of incidents into 100%. So we will be getting the our percentage of error budget. So our we in general error budget is 1 minus the SLO of the service. So our 99.9% SLO service has 0.1 error budget. So like if our service receives if our service receives for example if our service receives a 10 lakh request for in 1 week, 99.9% availability as low gives a budget of 1000 errors if, over the period. So that's how it is. It goes low. That's how we define the error budget.
So what you will do with this error budget? Means
so
how are you utilizing it in your day-to-day work?
Okay. So as I said, you like based on this, we basically define how we basically that governs how exactly the maintenance window will be done, or how exactly the newer changes will be applied, like like the frequency of the production bugs or like failed deployment.
Give me a practical scenario in your current job, in your current role.
Okay.
How, let's say, error budget. Let's say your service is not doing well. Your error budgets are getting consumed. So what will happen? Will an alert be fired and you receive the alert that error budget is getting consumed? So what you will do? What is your next step?
Yes, that's what the alert will be fired and received the alert. Now there are like multiple processes that we get followed. Like in order to set a value of the objective is not just like the engineering decisions, but the like business decision as well. Like which basically like we achieved input of the multiple stakeholders. So requires our analysis of like all the business needs, behavior, and how the deployment is going on happening, the roadmap, like how we are using for the innovations. So that actually we consider. So like we get into a discussion and we will be figuring out like these points are based on like which decided the strategy that we need to make. So like so in our like in every project like which we do consulting solution, we do prefer like a few few standardized like few standard conditions that which will be keeping. So we currently have these errors being thrown up, and there's a discussion channel also and open to the stakeholders, like where where we analyze all the different components, like including behavior, business needs, as well as the product roadmaps and the user, and the based on like what we define, how we will proceeding further and everything.
How you will proceed further? So that's I'm asking. What you did, let's say in the past 2-3 weeks, if some alert
Okay.
mentioning that error budget is finishing. So how you proceed further?
Okay, got you. So if if that's the scenario, like we need to make sure like we are not pushing the any changes. So I mean like very quickly, so that has to be changes, whatever changes we are supposed to do to the production and recommend. Okay. Okay, let me put you like so you're asking me to define like very standardized example of the previous error. What is the error, the alert which we got and everything, right? Okay, that's what you want, right? The very recent alert of error budget we got and how we do solve that, right? Okay, so let's think. Well, ideally, we do it. It happens during the like a deployment window. So we basically have a deployment strategies, whereas blue and green deployment. So that we have our error budgets as low as possible. So if I talk about one of the most recent scenarios, that's where the production environment went down. So there are like multiple errors coming up during the deployment. So the first and foremost thing like we did was like roll back the deployment immediately. So that actually kept us from consuming our budget completely. So, and like when it comes to the code specific debugging, we basically started from the database problems, like database problem. And like very foremost thing I need to tell you, like we are all are in, I called everyone into the bridge call, and we started this. So we basically started from the database problems, and there are like different layers like which we actually going to check. We have checked.
Okay, that is okay. That is the standard process of resolving incidents in it. So, but I think error budget situation is a different way to resolve. So, do you have any error budget policy?
Okay. So we have created the error budget policy, but to be very honest, I am the one who actually created that, because it's been in our project for quite for some time. So like
what is mentioned in that policy?
So in that policy, as I said you before, like in that particular policy, we define the goals and the non-goals, like the SLO policies and and outage policy, escalation policy. So these are the major things. Like
about error budget policy, I'm not talking about outage or escalation. So what is stated in your error budget policy?
So like error budget policy, we include we define the guidelines like so we define the few of the guidelines and the procedures, like the policy will define like how defining the specific error budget. And for example, like for some policies, like we define if there is a service is performing or above its SLO, then release will proceed according to the release policy. If this service exceeded its error budget for proceeding for the 4 weeks window, like we will halt all the changes and release other than like zero issues or security effects until the service back within its SLO. So it depends. Like in generally, depending upon the cause of
Okay, I cannot see you, by the way. I can only see your face. Can I see a better view?
oh, okay.
Yes. Can you come closer? Because I cannot see your hands or your body, only the face.
Okay.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So you said error budget policy is telling you about when the release should happen normally, when the release should be halted, isn't it?
So yeah, I mentioned like outage policies. I mentioned few other escalation policies
No, no, I'm
also.
not talking about outage policy. I'm talking about error budget policy.
In this like in a
Yeah, I'm talking about in your current role, you are using error budget policy, which you mentioned about when the release should go normally, when the release should be halted. Now, why is that? What's the reason behind it? Why you're halting the release?
So that's the that's what the policy that which we have been that's an order to make sure that like we are performing like within the defined SLO. So like the service is not performing or our in our SLO, then the release will be like will not be proceed according, right? So if you are for example like if you are sitting inside like if you are sitting inside the SLO and it's working perfectly fine, then we can proceed it. Otherwise, it is defined in such a way, like in the policy, there in the case the service has been exceeded its error budget from for the uh, like proceeding for the 4 week window, we will hold the changes. We will we will hold the changes and we will like to reconsider it and we will see the issues and we will be fixing it again, right? So, but that
So
only
holding the changes, will it resolve the error budget problem?
for the but halting the release has been like a different perspective altogether. So the team we should be work on the reliability in that scenario. Like according to procedural errors cause that services itself is to mm, it's to exceed the error budget. Like if that is the case, like then eventually the team will be working out for the fixing the code. So without fixing that particular code bug, it should not be a subject or it is not a best practice or suggested to be move ahead with the release and the for the release. So obviously, my personal thing is like we need to halt the release and we need to fix that. And after that, for sure, like we need to postmortem all the postmortem all the scenario like what we have been done in resolving this. So then it would be like a much more good thing. And where like we can feel like we have achieved our error budgeting all this, like in this case there is a micro categorized error fails for the consumption budget that would be like to have caused the service to miss it and says SLO, then it's supposed to work on that reliability feature. So I personally feel like halting a release is for sure a good option where we can figure out this.
Okay, now tell me about SLO and SLAs. Why do you need SLAs when you already have SLOs?
So, like SLA is the is agreemental thing. Okay. For example, okay, as SRE for one of application team, I will be defining SLO. For example, it shows like the availability of application is somewhere around is like 93% or 94% something. So if it is a 99.9% even, then that if that is our SLO, like our objective of the threshold, which I have been covered. But in the SLA, when we do with the customers, we will be for sure we will be incrementing the gap. For example, if in our SLO, if we figure out like our SLO, in SLO, if we figure out like we need a 99.9% availability, but while the time of SLA agreementing with the customer, we don't mention it as a 99.9% because like where we need to have our threshold or gap between them. So like SLA is like an agreement that which we do with the customers and application team. Like for example, when we talk about the uptime, so that like one of the metric and the SLA will govern the agreement that has been done with the end client or the end user. However, SLO is like an internal. It's our like our objective, our team, like our application team objective to keep these certain thresholds, right? It's it both are like a two different things. In our SLO goals, like we will mention our specific things, like we must achieve at this point, or like we must reach like our availability should be at this point, our resiliency at this point, or everything. It's all for our objectives, how we encourage or how we mentor the application teams to perform their development or working strategies and maintain all these. But when it comes to SLA, it's total different thing. Then we deal with the customers, right? So at that point of time, when we deal with the customers, when we are working with them, so for sure, like we need to be an agreemented, and in that we need to provide our in agreement, like we need to provide our availability of our application. For example, availability of our application. For example, in our SLO is to define in SLO, like if we figure it out or consider our availability is 99%. Okay, but in SLA we don't mention our availability is 99% because we will be at least we will decrease it. For example, we will if it is 99%, we have been kept our threshold on SLO and we worked on it and we achieved it also, but we won't mention that 99% of availability in SLA because it is with the client. So in order to have that space, so we will be keeping mentioning like it should be somewhere around 95%, at least 95% or 93%, so that we will mention in that SLA. So these are the two different things like which we do on SLOs and SLA.
Okay, sorry, I think I was on mute. So I was asking, which one is more relaxed, SLA or SLO?
You mean like relaxed?
Relaxed means which one is more strict or which one is more relaxed?
So,
yeah.
So we need to be for sure more strict on the SLO because to make our team work or to monitor, for example, like to make our team work, for example, our objectives is to like increase our productivity or reliability of any application. So we need to be strict at this part, and mostly in agreemental side, SLA side also we need to be very perfect. For example, in the previous example only I told you, if we have achieved our objective of 99% in our 99% our application availability or reliability everything, but still we should not be relaxed and mention the same amount of availability or reliability in the SLA, because if we mention that the same there, it would be it would be really a thing like where we are putting ourselves in a trouble, right? Because at some point it would be really tough for us to estimate
Okay,
these.
now let's come to your monitoring experience. Which platform you use for establishing monitoring setups?
So for that we mostly work with Grafana and the Prometheus.